Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast, where we help you with your professional and personal growth, helping you say yes to all the scary stuff. Hey, Gunjan, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, John. I'm wonderful, man. It's Friday. Can't be better.
Yeah, no, listen, I am with you. And, you might all be wondering, where's Heather? Well, Heather is somewhere in Mongolia. She sent me a message this week. She has just gone through Japan, and now she's somewhere in Mongolia, and she's doing well. So she will be back soon after she's done her trip. But I'm so happy, Gunjan, to have you here to be a part of this podcast and really to share some insights with the world, right? So good
Thank
to have
you.
you
Thank
here.
you, John, for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gunjan, it's Celebration Fridays. I love Celebration Fridays. It's an opportunity to celebrate a highlight of our week, to celebrate an opportunity of the good things that are happening for us. So, Gunjan, what is your celebration this week?
So, John, you know what? This also reminds me that Celebration Friday is good. We celebrate Friday. I also celebrate Mondays, and it gives us a thing that if we put into perspective, we celebrate every day like it's Friday. We don't have to wait for until Friday. So
Yeah.
that.
I love that. I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm taking every day to celebrate. So, do you have okay, so you've been celebrating all week. So, what's the one thing you've been celebrating?
So what I've been celebrating is I've been celebrating my consistency on the cold
Mm.
showers, right? So last two
Ooh.
weeks, so today, this Friday, marks my second week doing my cold showers in the morning. And I learned this through Wim Hof training that a
Mm.
friend of mine does here in Toronto. And I'd done this pre-COVID, and we did an ice bath dip and all nice stuff, breathing exercise. It was all good, right? It got lost somewhere. I knew the benefits of it. We both have been to Tony Robbins. He speaks about it. He has a cold plunge in his house in the backyard.
Mm.
So we knew the benefits. I tried it, did it, but you know how consistency is a challenge, right, John?
Yeah.
So we all once in a while kind of get into it. So I did do cold showers at one point pre-COVID, but it wasn't consistent. I did it when I felt like it, and it's not easy to jump into cold water early in the morning, and so you get lazy, and it feels so nice and cozy in the hot shower that you don't feel like turning it on to cold. And that's how I lost my consistency on it. I did try it, but last week I said, no, let me get onto this. And the technique that I used is I start with warm water, hot
Mm.
water, go a little warm, and then before getting off the shower, I turn it to cold. So I'm
Yeah.
celebrating that. It's 2 weeks doing it, and I'm enjoying it. Charges up my day. It gives me energy in the morning. It gives me that little spark that we need in the morning.
Oh, awesome! I love it. It's funny that you talked about cold showers. So I've learned from a good friend of mine too, Pat, who's been doing these cold showers every morning. So I've tried it, right? So I don't know. For those that know me, you know that I am warm, right? Like I like heat. I love, when it's like 30 degrees, I'm outside, right? Like it's 30 degrees. I'm like, oh, this is so nice, right? So cold for me is a bit of a challenge, right? It's something that I've been consistently trying to work on. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been on and off with doing the cold shower at the end. And you're right. You know what? It does it gives you a boost of energy. There's so many benefits to cold showers, cold dips, cold baths, because it helps burn brown fat, or at least that's what I've heard. But also helps boost up your immunity. It helps do a lot of great things. So you just reminded me to get back into my cold showers. I want to make sure the next shower I take, so here's my question: how long do you do your cold shower for at the end? Is it like 30 seconds? Is it a minute? Is it 2 minutes?
Yeah, I don't think I would be going beyond uh, 30 seconds to a minute, right? But
Mm,
I haven't never timed myself, but I timed myself when I took a dip in the cold bucket,
yeah,
and it was like more than a minute. But daily shower, maybe 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds at the end. But
love
that
it.
itself feels so good. And once you pass that 30-second mark, It's not about the
Just
time.
goes
If you
away.
want to be there, you can be there for more than a minute or two. The first 5 seconds is what's difficult. Once you're there, then that's
Yeah, it actually reminds me. So I want to take a second. Good morning, Crystal. Love having you here with us. Have you ever taken a cold plunge or cold shower? I'd love to get your feedback on it. And it actually reminds me, as I was training for this for the Ironman earlier this year, one of the things I did, I needed to practice in open water before the actual day of the event. And you make a good point. After the first 3 seconds, you just don't feel anything, and it's like it feels great. So as I was training, one of the things I went up to Heather's cottage, and she's up in Georgia Bay, and I went for a swim in, I think it was April. The water was 6 degrees. So 6 degrees is the temperature that's outside right now, right? So 6 degrees in water is really cold. And for the first 2 minutes, it hurt to be in the water. It was so painful. I was wearing a wetsuit. I had a cap. I was fully clothed, but it was freezing, right? Like,
yeah.
don't know how a wetsuit works. Let me explain wetsuit to everybody. Wetsuits work like this. Wetsuits let the water in. Your body heats the little layer of water in between you and the suit, and that's what keeps you warm. But can I tell you, that initial shock of the water going into your suit at 6 degrees is like freaking freezing. And but the one thing it did, it prepared me for the event in May, right? At the end of May, when I did the Ironman 70.3 in Victoria, the water was 16 degrees. Wow. 16 degrees compared to 6 degrees is like really warm, right? So great preparation. I love it. I love it. I love it. But yeah, no, Crystal said, I haven't taken a cold shower, cold plunge. However, I am inspired to try it soon. Listen,
do try it. Do try it.
Do try it, and, for those that are listening to the replay of this, cold plunge, there's just so much health benefits associated with it. Actually, Gunjan, you and I, we both saw this last year when we were at the Tony Robbins event.
Yeah.
They talked about cold plunges, right? Like how beneficial it is for your body, how beneficial it is for your immune system, especially now, right? So we're into that flu season now. There's a lot of people coming up with COVID. There's a lot of people coming up with the flu. And this is one way to battle against it. That's not medication. So something to think about as you go into that. So celebration for me this week, oh man, like this week's been an interesting week. Number one, it's been a short week because of Thanksgiving, and happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody. But this week, I'm just celebrating just reaching awareness of the power of consistency, right? And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about consistency, because consistency, I'll be honest with you, this week has been tough, right? It's been tough being consistent with my movement. It's been tough being consistent with my nutrition, and it's been tough being consistent with my mindset. Like, it's just, there's so many things that pop in, and Gunjan, I'd love for us to talk about this, because I know how difficult it can be sometimes to be consistent, especially when you're making a shift in your life, right? Especially when you're making change, right? Because the consistency is, it's the thing that gets you to where you want to be, right? And I know I've seen you this year, right? Like, you've gone through your changes, your shifts, through your transformation because of the consistency that you've had. So what I'd love to learn from you is, what are you actually, do you have a struggle with any area that you're consistent with? I know the cold shower has been one of those areas, but is there any other area that you've been struggling with from a consistency perspective?
Yes, John. So let me give you a little bit of background how this, like, we both have been involved in the personal development journey for a while now. So we invest in ourselves, doing personal development, learning new stuff, learning new techniques, learning new skills. So last year I came up with this idea of putting a little bit of structure around it, meaning also be conscious on what we are learning and where we want to direct our learning and growth. And I just chose to give a theme to each year, like 2023.
Okay.
2023. So I want to practice different human traits. So
Okay.
consistency, love, compassion, kindness, control, perseverance, all these kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you may not need 1 year for each of them, but to start, and we talk about how hard this is. It's not easy. So if you try to practice this for a week, month, 2 month, you can fall back. And as a matter of learning this, it's important that we have enough time, that we may fall off the wagon, but we need a way to get back. And that resilience is very, very important. And it will happen. It's natural. Priorities change in our lives, things come up, life throws things at us, and all this is very natural. Everybody goes through it. I go through it, you go through it, everybody listening has. But how you approach that failure and being consistent, I think that is very important.
Yeah.
So say I'll there is different ways to look at it. One is you really want to practice that trait on a skill, and you try to be consistent on it. Say, for example, cold shower,
Okay.
and and some priorities for you change in your life. Maybe you start working night shifts, and morning cold showers are not possible for you,
Yeah.
right? So
It
things
definitely
like
wouldn't
that,
make sense. Yeah, for sure.
right? Then you have to forgive yourself or be considerate of those things, acknowledge that things have changed, and my initial goal of being consistent on this probably is not the priority at this point.
Yeah.
What happens to me, at least for a lot of time that I have observed in the past, it would be very difficult for me to forgive myself. I would blame myself, saying that I promised to be consistent on this and now I'm not. But I failed to acknowledge that the priorities in life has changed, and it's okay because this is not a priority right now and it's not required. So we need to understand that and find that little uh, for ourselves, right?
Yeah. No, the one thing that's showing up for me as you're saying that is just giving yourself grace, right? Giving yourself the opportunity to accept where you are in this moment, right? Like, like I think about this week, right? So this week I've been, I'm gonna be honest and a little vulnerable with everybody. I've been struggling with my movement this week, right? Like the one thing I'm dedicated to is 30 minutes of movement every single day. It's one of the things that keep me in shape. It's the one thing that keeps me in health. And there's been a couple of days where I've missed it, right? Like even on Thanksgiving, I got up early, I did my 30 minutes because I knew I was going to eat a lot and I wanted to make sure that I made space for all of that. So I did my 30-minute spin in the morning before I actually, I went out and we celebrated with the family. But the rest of the week has been tough, right? Because there's been things that have been showing up. There's extra work that's been popping in. There's a bit of catch up that I've been doing. And my 30 minutes, and I'm like, here's the mistake. And this is for everybody. You've probably gone through this thing. You've gone through the same. So please let me know in the chat if this is you. I'll do it later, right? I'll do my exercise later. Like my routine, my schedule is I do my exercise first thing in the morning. And if I get it out of the way before 8 a.m., then I'm in good shape, right? Because then it's out of the way, it's done, and I can focus on the remainder of my day. But here's what ends up happening. There's Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, the 2 days where I'm like, okay, I'll just do it after. I'll do it afterwards. I'll do it afterwards. Like do you ever say that to yourself? I'll just do it later, right? So the thing is, later never comes. But the other thing that also happens is not only does later never come, but later ends up taking away your energy, takes away your focus from all the things that you want to do. Right? Because now part of your brain is thinking about, I'm going to do this exercise later. You don't do it later. And then you start to feel bad about not doing it. Right? I know it's like the worst thing, right? And it just sucks up your energy. If we're a battery, right? Like if we're a battery and, if our energy needs to go into different places, right? Like how we spend our energy as we go throughout our day, if it's going to a thought of something we're not going to do, then it's just a waste of energy, right? So you might as well just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it today. Like that is so much easier to just close that gap, right? To close that loop and to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do it tomorrow and not feel bad about it and give myself grace for that. Because, you end up holding on to these negative feelings, these negative thoughts of like, oh man, I failed. I failed at this week, right? And the power of consistency is really around getting yourself back. And I went for my walk this morning, right? Because going through the power of consistency and just making sure that I'm consistent with getting my 30 minutes in. I went out for my walk at 7 a.m. this morning. It was 6 degrees, right? It was, we talked about how I'm not a big fan of the cold. I'll give it 30 degrees all day long. I'll take it. But I'm like, you know what? If I can do this, then, kind of sets the pace for the rest of the day. Here we are. It's 8:15 in the morning, and I've already got my 30 minutes in this morning. So that part done. Now I can focus on the rest of my day. So, for those of you that are watching and listening, and I just want to take a second. Good morning, Felicia. Welcome. Yes. That feeling. I think we all kind of have, and we understand what that feels like because it can be difficult, right? But giving yourself grace to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that today. Today I'm focusing, I'm shifting my priorities to be somewhere else. Either I'm going to focus on my work, I'm going to focus on my family. There's other things that take priority over this today. But here's the thing, it's today, not this week, not this month, not this year. Right? Like it's just the one moment. This is today. We just want to take care of this today. And then tomorrow we get back on track.
Exactly.
And that's the one thing that I found is, the days where you slip, the days that you kind of fall off routine, give yourself grace, right? And just give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to do that today. Listen, at the end of the day, there's nobody holding you accountable to anything except yourself.
Exactly.
Right? So, just give yourself permission to just not do that.
I love that what you mentioned. Give yourself grace. I think that is very, very powerful because that negative energy. I also like the analogy of the battery that you gave, right? We don't want something that is draining our energy. So the whole purpose of consistency is it should empower you. As you're practicing consistency and you slip one day, and if that's going to drain you, then that's not serving you, right?
Yeah.
And there's one good thing that I remember is one of the presenters was presenting this in a in some seminar, and he showed a blank page and put a mark at the corner of it and said, "What do you see?" Everybody pointed at the mark, right? So 99% of the page was a clean white blank page. Nobody said 99% of the page is white. They pointed at the mark, right? So that's what happens to us in consistency. Say you're going for a walk, and I acknowledge and admire you, John, that what you're doing is you've been consistently walking every day, and you're on that mission. But that negative idea of skipping one day sometimes can be daunting on us, right?
Yeah.
So glad you mentioned give yourself grace. I think that is very, very powerful. And one more thing
Yeah.
that I would like to share, John, here is when you're practicing consistency, start something small. That is right. Start something small, achievable, and also with a definite timeline. Don't go out and give a big shot. I'll change the world tomorrow, right? So we have this. We
Why
have this,
not? Why can't we do that? We're just going to change the world.
right? So
Yeah.
decide something really, really small. Pick something really small, and do it for a definite time. I remember your story with Heather on starting this podcast. Initially, you didn't say that I will do it 3 days a week for a lifetime. You just said I will do it for 5 days, right? So you had a
Yeah.
definite timeline, and it was short. You didn't say that I will do a 3 hour podcast or something. That I'll do 20 minutes, 3 days a week for just 5 days, right?
Yeah.
That is very powerful. So
Yeah.
start something small, right?
Yeah, no, starting small and just, small, Sam Dima, he's got a whole book. It's called Small Consistent Actions. And it's about doing the small things every day, right? I just want to take a second, Felicia. Yes, it's harder. It's actually, is it really harder to be consistent when it's colder weather outside? Maybe that's a mindset that we're all
True.
focused on. Listen, I'm with you too, Felicia. I'm not a big fan of cooler weather, especially when it gets to 6 degrees. But here's what I've learned, right? Just you got to dress better. You got to dress warmer on the colder days. And that's what helps you. So I always focus on what's my goal? What's the bigger vision for my life, right? And I think about consistency in terms of having a healthier life at an older age, right? I'm now training for my 70s and my 80s, right? I have a mentor, Pat, who is, well into her 70s, and she's crushing it. Cold weather, hot weather, whatever it is, she's consistent. And, I look and admire and respect what she's been able to do just by being consistent. And at 72, she's doing weights, she's doing yoga, she's doing stretches. Like when I look at her profile, I'm like, oh man, okay, I got no excuse. I'm not 72. I can go do this. I don't have any big physical ailments that are, stopping me. If she can be consistent, so can I, right? And just like Gunjan, you said it already. Just the small things, right? Like just be consistent in one small way. Whether it's a cold shower, cold shower for 30 seconds at the end of your shower. It's going for a walk for 3 minutes. Whatever that is, just be consistent. So here's your takeaway as we go and we start to wrap up this session today. Here's your call to action. What are you going to be consistent with for the next 7 days? That's it. What small thing can you do for the next 7 days? Is it going for a walk? Is it taking the cold showers? What is that? And just do it, right? Because we're going to ask you the question next week. We're going to ask you the question next Friday as we celebrate. I want to ask you the question, what have you been consistent with over the last 7 days? And we'd love to hear that from you. All right. So something to think about as we go into the weekend. Gunjan, is there any final thoughts that you want to leave with people as we wrap up this session of the Say Yes Movement podcast?
No, as you already given a call to action, I'll just like them to remember, start with small because it creates a ripple effect. Not just in the amount of thing that it will amplify to, but you will be able to multiply different things. Apply consistency. You start with one, and then it will ripple effect to other areas of your life where you want to apply.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other topic. Well, maybe we'll have to save that for next week. All right. So that is it for this episode of the Say Yes Movement podcast. Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all later. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.